the whole screen. And you should see my presentation now.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so thank you, Christopher, for inviting me. This is the first time that I actually presented properly my methodology, so I am a bit nervous about it, also because I am in the midst of it. So if there are some incongruencies or stuff like that, just know that this is a work in progress. And just to give you an idea of where this collocates within my PhD, I will focus on the methodology, which will basically comprise from the data collection to the data analysis. I will tell you about what I call ethnographics, which is how I design a graphic ethnography study within the context of my PhD, the data processing, so the sketchbook, recordings, etc., how I process that. And then we will enter into this phase, which is the actual phase I'm working on, which is this part that I call translating data into writing. And we will look at, I will mention phenomenography, and I will use 3 of my participants to explain to you how I am actually doing the data analysis. And then, just some thoughts that I am reflecting on as I am in this process. So as an overview, my PhD is called Sustainability in the Making, Radical Craft and the Roots of Eco-Social Change. And it deals with the questions of how we can build cultures of sustainability through social craft. This is done with maker communities in Devon and the Southwest, in particularly South Devon and East Cornwall, which is where I am based. And we didn't know the communities before, so we started the PhD started with a big exploratory process of trying to know those communities and understand where they were around sustainability. And I ran mostly some exploratory surveys that show that there is already a deep interest in sustainability, that there is a vibrant community of makers and creatives in general in the area that are very active and are already taking actions through their craft, through their creative practice, to bring people, to sensibilize people in sustainability. And even organizations like Make Southwest or other kind of institutions from grassroots to more institutional one, I would rather say, we're already having and putting together programs to foster sustainability in the making. So this process of exploratory exploration brought me to change a bit the perspective on how I started to think about craft and sustainability and craft as a vehicle of sustainability. And the idea was more like, so the questions that were arising were more like, well, these people are already doing things, but how can we establish exactly what is the sustainable making and how is sustainability understood, conceptualized, and manifested in the process of making? So this brought me to reposition a bit the project instead of as design for social innovation, which is how it started, something in between design for social innovation and design anthropology. And the idea was to explore the questions that were arising through an ethnographic approach, which was kind of tricky for me because I'm not an ethnographer, I'm not trained in anthropology, so I needed to look for a method that could allow me to capture cultural dynamics, so to understand how culture is produced. But at the same time, I needed to build a relationship with these people that I didn't know before, and the exploratory part also made evident that when you have a more creative approach, of kind of obvious, but in a creative community, it resonates. So it invites people. People are like more likely to join. And at the same time, because I don't have like an infinite time to do things, I wanted something that I was confident with. And it arrived like a bit like not really by surprise, but it came to me in a very unexpected way. So urban sketching, or this idea of journaling through drawing, is something that I've been doing for a very, very long time, since I was in architecture school more than 20 years ago. So this is something that I have been doing for a very long time. And at some point in 2023, I was in Heathrow and I started to draw other people that were like me, very bored, waiting for their connection or their trains or whatever they were waiting for. And I started to notice that when I was drawing these people, I was capturing a lot of things that were happening, both about the people, but also about the dynamics that were in there. So that came to me like the idea, what if I will use this method in my research? And I started to engage a bit with the literature to see if there were other people that have been using like graphic method in ethnography, and I found out that actually there is, and it's a subset of visual ethnography, and it's called graphic ethnography, which is mostly based on drawing, not just observational drawing. They also use comic and other forms of of graphic representations to explore ethnographic questions, and I found that very interesting. So I decided to run some pilots. That I went to various craft activities and also and starting to test a bit. And as I was putting that together for the ethics, exactly to understand better this methodology, what were the limits. And one thing that I started to notice is that in crowded spaces, it works particularly well, because in crowded spaces where the flow of people is constantly movement, like for example, Christmas markets, or craft festivals with the workshop of children. There are many, many children constantly in and out. Sitting down and just observing that in this very, very prolonged way allows you to capture a lot of dynamics that you will not be able to capture in any other way. But when you have more one-to-one approach, like for example I did with Sarah, which is the little ceramicist in the corner, she started to talk to me very, very happily and very organically. And the conversation started to go on her practice and what she does and her philosophy around her craft. It was very, very beautiful. And therefore, I decided to have a more mixed method approach. So not to do just observational drawing, but to pair that with interviews and conversation. And because I want a constant conversation also with the community in general, all these things and my PhD is documented on a website that is the website of the research. So with that done, the data collection has been run from 2024 until 2025. And I have been conducting field work in public events, craft workshop, craft workshop. I also had focused interviews with key people. I had the opportunity to do a longitudinal participant observation study of the Saturday Club at Make Southwest, and also the opportunity to join a couple of classes in a school that were engaging in the craft school program, which is a educational program promoted by the Craft Council that targets in particular schools. So the data that has been collected comes mostly in three forms. So the biggest one are drawings, of course, which are gestural drawings and notes that I've been taking. Some of them are more or less rich also having written notes, especially in the moment where I was capturing conversation or people were talking to me, but there was no possibility of recording. And of course, there are recordings of the interviews and all other conversation that I had the possibility or that the participant accepted to be recorded. All of this needs to be put together, which is a massive job that is taking a lot of time, but it's also very beautiful. So the drawings comes in a very gestural form. They are sketches done, of course, quite fast because You never understand how much people move until you try to draw them out. So everything is constantly fleeting. Then what I do is that I retrace and apply colors and all these kind of things that allow me to sit a moment with all the things that I've been noting down. So think of it like when you take notes while somebody is talking, and you maybe you have all sorts of words that are disconnected from each other, and then you engage with them again, and you put together like in sort of more narrative and discursive things that actually make sense. This is the same process with the drawing. And after that, I scan them, adjust them a bit digitally, and put them in vivo. For the recordings, sometimes, well, more than sometimes, they need some editing because they are done in public settings, so there is noise that needs to be removed, etc. I do this bit of editing, then I put them in a software for automatic transcription. They go on a round of revision in which I correct all the things that the machine didn't capture or mistakenly transcribed. And then I export the transcription in PDF, put that in vivo. So now my in vivo is an enormous container of all these files. And this is where I need to start to interpret them. So what do I do with that? Now, before entering exactly into what I'm doing, I think to take a moment to step back and to talk about phenomenography, which is the approach that we have decided to take to tackle my big data set and my varied data set. And so phenomenography is a methodology or an approach that basically has this epistemic view on which the people experience a certain phenomenon in different ways. So there is a plurality of way of experiencing a phenomenon. However, given a certain group, you will find some commonalities in this experience that then become categories. So there are limited way in given a group in a certain context in which people interpreted that phenomenon. So is often described as understanding people understanding, which in my case translates into